shape and color are states of the nerves. So what you see when your eyes are open is how it feels inside your head. You think your head is a blank, but actually it's being a blank. You don't see your brain as an external undulating corrugated structure. You see your brain as everything outside. So in this way, the emptiness of one's head is the condition of seeing. The transparency of the eye lens is the condition of seeing colors. It has no color itself. Eckhart said this: because my eye has no color, it is able to discern color. In the 13th century. This is fundamental Taoism, idea of being absent as a condition of being present. Being not there. So, Zhuangzi says, when your belt is comfortable, you don't feel it. When your shoes are comfortable, it is as if you weren't wearing any. Likewise, your clothes. See, the more you are aware of these things, the less properly they are made, or the less properly they fit. But we raise an objection to this. If I don't know I'm there, I think we want to know how we know. If we're happy and we don't know we're happy, we might just as well not be happy. To be happy and to know that you're happy is really the overflowing.
Pull themselves, they love to spin in circles and make themselves feel dizzy. Because that's a great thing, you know, that feeling of, they're going like this, you see. They're always fascinated with the limits of experience. So what's out beyond that? Of course, now when a sophisticated astronomer tries to tell you that space is finite, we resent this and say, all right, space is finite, but what's outside it? Well, the astronomer says, you see, you can only talk about an outside inside space. Outside space, there is no outside. You see, the mind won't take it. The sense, you see, of infinity. So, this space fascinates us, going on forever, expanding. It seems to be actually going on forever, see? If the universe is a huge explosion. But you can see, can't you, I think this. Space, although you cannot pin it down, and it has the quality of infinity, there's no way of talking about space, because it has no color, it has no weight, you can't cut it, you can't possibly chop it into pieces. And yet, at the same time, you cannot differentiate it from solids. We come to another important point here, you see. That solid and space are in a secret conspiracy with each other.
has to do with the fact that this unit length square of edge is 1 that is body diagonal is the square root of 2. That's 90 angles. And we can use a square itself as an abstract symbol to represent a square. And because you can use geometric symbols to begin constructing a higher dimensional reality, for example, you can use squares to construct cubes, right? That's a higher dimensional square. So our approach is to suppose that perhaps reality itself is this dynamic mosaic-like code, this three-dimensional quasi-crystal that describes form, describes time-related a simulation, the idea of code, and using that information symbolism to model or describe something else.
In the present state of scientific knowledge, inadequate. And one of our major problems today is to find an adequate, satisfying image of the world. Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to go further than that. Not only what image of the world to have, but how we can get our sensations and our feelings in accordance with the most sensible image of the world that we can manage to conceive. All right, now, the two images which we have been working under for 2,000 years and maybe more are what I would call two models of the universe. The first is called the ceramic model, and the second, fully automatic model. The ceramic model of the universe is based on the book of Genesis, from which Judaism, Islam, and Christianity derive their basic picture of the world. And the image of the world in the book of Genesis is that the world is an artifact. It is made as a potter takes clay and forms pots out of it, or as a carpenter takes wood and makes tables and chairs out of it. Don't forget, Jesus is the son of a carpenter, and also the son of God. So the image of God and of the world is based on the idea of God as a technician, potter, carpenter, architect, who has in mind a plan and who fashions the universe in accordance with that plan. So basic to this image of the world is the notion, you see, that the world consists of stuff, basically. Primordial matter, substance, stuff.
Just as perhaps as we perform this particular set of actions, perhaps there were some nuances about that you had not anticipated. That is what your imagination contains as a tool. The ability to bring forth these specifics and apply them to a specific situation. With this tool, you no longer need anyone else's help. Now, this does not mean you cannot share, and this does not mean that from time to time you will, in that sense, enlist the assistance of other individuals. But you now have within you everything you need to proceed in any given situation if you will call forth and embody and empower that preferred you. At first, it may seem as a process. At first, it may seem that, well, my initial tendency is still the old approach. But the more times that you, rather than acting from the old perspective, call forth the referential, preferential you, and hand that over, the more times you will give yourself the opportunity to see that there is always a positive choice. And it is always within you, obtainable by you at any time. if when you hand the situation over to that referential, preferential you, and see what that you does, if you then do that, you will get the result of being that you. And the more you are willing to do so and only allow your life to be that consciously performed, the more that the process will dissolve in terms of seeming like a process. You will begin to automatically simply invoke and embody that you without the seeming one step of removal. So therefore this tool, if it does initially seem like a process, only does so because that is where you are now willing to insert a pause before you act according to non-preference. That pause, that willingness before acting when you have a negative perspective is all that is necessary to completely transform the face of your life. For it does not take very many positive actions in a row that then yield positive
product of rotations. Because you will say, well, a net rotation along this direction, you will naively think it's just given by the rotation along this axis times a rotation along this axis times a rotation along this axis. It's not true. This net rotation along this angle is not naively given by the composition of the three rotations, okay? The reason is because the generators do not commute, because the matrices do not commute. And this is why you cannot naively multiply these matrices together and get this, okay? Be very, very careful, huh? And this is where the Bacon-Camper-Hausdorff formula comes from. It's one of the most important formulas in group theory. You have it in your book, in several areas of your book. And the derivation is very subtle, but I'm not going to show it to you. But if you look in Wikipedia, for example, you're going to see that the log of the product exponentials, let's suppose that your generators commute. If the commutator of x with y is 0, and then this is 0, and then you'll get zeros everywhere, and you will end up with the first two terms, which is what one will naively expect. You know, the product of exponential is an exponential given by the sum of x plus y. And when you take the logarithm of e raised to the x plus y, you will get x plus y. But remember, in general, because the generators do not commute, you have this more complicated expression. In such a way, for example, that when I take the product of the exponentials, I get the first two terms is the naive thing that one would expect. You will add the exponentials, but then you're going to have extra terms. And in general, you will have an infinite number of terms in general. Sometimes, if these matrices are of a very peculiar kind, the series will eventually terminate somewhere. For example, if you choose an upper triangular matrix, for example, a matrix that is 0 everywhere except in the upper triangular part or in the lower triangular part.
And this other part of the character is first of all a sign. Then you put legs on and that means seeing. The whole character is pronounced one. And it means a certain kind of observation, a certain way of looking at things, which might be typified by the image of a heron standing at the edge of the water, as in this painting, which is by the great Japanese artist Kano Motonobu. There is the heron standing quietly and serenely, watching the water. And so, the whole meaning of this attitude to life is what is summed up in the entire Eastern idea of meditation, typified in these Buddha figures. And I want to try today to explain to you something of the meaning of this attitude to life.
elegantly explain existing phenomena that other theories explain less elegantly. So we still don't have such a theory. And so you could say that's the holy grail of physics, because if we were to discover such a theory of everything that would make predictions, well, it would be the holy grail of physics, because everything, chemistry, biology, even psychology, medicine, everything is emergent and builds up from that foundational theory of everything. Perhaps the discovery of a theory of everything here in the 21st century could usher in Star Trek-like technologies that could help humanity early. And so that's what we work on. We are one of the many groups trying to crack this code, this holy grail, to discover what the theory of everything is. And we take this code theoretic approach, and we use quasi-crystal mathematics. So why do we use the E8 crystal to build our three-dimensional quasi-crystals? Well, the largest thing that humans have ever built is the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland. In fact, it's not just the largest thing, it's also the most expensive thing. No one country could afford it, so many countries pooled their money together, and they bought this giant thing with taxpayer money. So why would humans have approved spending so much money on one thing? And by the way, what is it really? Well, what it is it's a microscope. It's a microscope that allows us to peer down in the direction of the pixel of reality, which is called the Planck length. So as we build larger particle accelerators and we can collide particles together at higher energies, we get a closer look at the fundamental interactions that occur at the very small scales. And we get data. We get scattering angles on how the particles scatter from one another. And if you take all of this data that we've gotten from particle accelerators, it builds up to...
It seems like this is the only reality. This is the only, many times individuals will say, planet with intelligent life. Not true. And you may understand that that is a very narrow point of view. By excluding 99.9999 so on and so forth % of reality, you focus in on a very fine fractionated portion of your totality. You may feel that seeing, thinking, hearing, smelling, feeling one thing at a time is the normal mode of operation. But from your higher self perspective, it is a unique experience, for your higher self has the ability to understand an infinite number of things at once. So therefore, one thing at a time is actually the exception rather than the rule. How you set up your reality here, so to speak, is by seeming as though one thing at a time is the rule, and playing that sense, that fine ability to focus down to one thing at a time. These are all built into the reasoning of your higher self for experiencing this type of reality. Now, the sense of amnesia that you impose upon yourself is so pervasive, is so all-inclusive, that you have conveniently, perhaps some of you will experience that inconveniently, forgotten even why you're here. But obviously, you are now beginning to allow yourself to attract the resources through whatever you read, whatever you find yourself attracted to, interactions such as this, to remind yourself through reflections, through a mirror. I am only a mirror within your own consciousness, that these other ideas are so, effectively beginning to lift your amnesia. Again, along a timeline, an unfoldment, a bit at a time.
It's the fruits of the action, so that he acts in a way that doesn't generate future karma,
because future karma continues you in the wheel of becoming, samsara, the round, and keeps you being reincarnated. Now then, in that case, when the time comes that you start to get out of the chain of karma, all the creditors that you have start presenting themselves for payment. In other words, a person who begins, say, to study yoga is felt that he will suddenly get sick, or that his children will die, or that he'll lose his money, or all sorts of catastrophes will occur, because the karmic debt is being cleared up. And it is in no hurry to be cleared up if you're just living along like anybody, but if you embark on the spiritual life, a certain hurry occurs. And therefore, since this is known, it's rather discouraging to start these things. The Christian way of saying the same thing is that if you plan to change your life, shall we say, to turn over a new leaf, you mustn't let the devil know, because he will oppose you with all his might if he suddenly discovers that you're going to escape from his power. So, for example, if you have a bad habit, say you drink too much, and you make a New Year's resolution that during this coming year you'll stop drinking, that's a very, very dangerous thing to do, because the devil will immediately know about it. And what will happen will be this: he will confront you with the prospect of 365 drinkless days. And that will be awful, just overwhelming. And you won't be able to make much more than 3 days on the wagon. So in that case, you compromise with the devil and say, just today I'm not going to drink, you see, but tomorrow maybe, we'll go back. Then when tomorrow comes, you say, oh, just another day, let's try out, that's all. And the next day you say, oh, one more day won't make much.
Fine ability to focus down to one thing at a time. These are all built into the reasoning of your higher self for experiencing this type of reality. Now, the sense of amnesia that you impose upon yourself is so pervasive, is so all-inclusive, that you have conveniently, perhaps some of you will experience that inconveniently, forgotten even why you're here. But obviously, you are now beginning to allow yourself to attract the resources through whatever you read, whatever you find yourself attracted to, interactions such as this, to remind yourself through reflections, through a mirror. I am only a mirror within your own consciousness, that these other ideas are so, effectively beginning to lift your amnesia. Again, along a timeline, an unfoldment, a bit at a time. Your timing is always impeccable. Impeccable. It cannot be otherwise. It is always that where you are, right here, right now, the only place and time you ever experience is always the most perfect place in the entirety of your being. I believe this is another little minor fact you may have forgotten. Therefore, you will often create your reality as going somewhere a whole lot better than right here, which is, in a sense, only an idea. For you are the one who has determined that right here and right now is not the perfect place and time. When you assign that meaning, needless to say, you get that effect. And constantly are you going somewhere, never quite being where you are. Where you are is always unique. Where you are always has advantages that any other place you seem to go, and I am speaking in your own linear terms, will not contain. So every here and now has a unique...
Then that creates the attachment. You can create things enjoy the act of creation without attaching yourself either to the outcome or mentally projecting yourself forward to the outcome, or when you finally achieve the goal, attaching yourself to the goal and claim credit, feel I did that, look at me. Or as sometimes people go, yeah. A little bit of ego in there. If there's no ego, you create and then you step back. So this non-attachment is something that comes with being present as a natural result of being present. You become less attached to outcomes, to achievements, to things, even to people. Although you can love, there's an outflow of loving kindness, but not the clinging attachment. I love you, don't you ever leave me, because you know what's going to happen then. As I mentioned in a book, the Spanish for to love, te quiero, literally means I want you. It's the same word. And that's the normal word for I love you. So that's a very honest way of saying it, because most love comes from the ego. It might have other elements mixed in with leave me, because you know what's going to happen then. As I mentioned in a book, the Spanish for to love, te quiero, literally means I want you. It's the same word. And that's the normal word for I love you. So that's a very honest way of saying it, because most love comes from the ego. It might have other elements mixed in with it. But most of that kind of love is egoic and can easily turn into its opposite. So it's not real love if it can turn into its opposite suddenly. I want you. In English that would sound strange. There's a poetic way in Spanish to say I love you, but not many people use it. Te amo. It's like a poem. And it's beautiful. I want you. I really want to. You want me? As strongly as I want you. And so when wanting is thwarted and things happen, then anger arises. Even hatred can arise quickly. So that's attachment. So many teachings, spiritual teachings, speak of the importance of non-attachment, but it's not really possible to practice non-attachment in the absence of sensing the presence. If you cannot sense the transcendent dimension of who you are, and you cannot sense yourself as the presence.
As to how it's done. It was like when Louis Armstrong was asked, what is jazz? He said, if you have to ask, you don't know. Now that's awkward, isn't it? But we can gather what it is by absorbing certain atmospheres and attitudes connected with those who follow it. And from the art and the poetry and all the expressions and the anecdotes and stories that illustrate the philosophy of the way. So this word then, the way or the course of things, is not, you must understand this, some Christian missionaries translated Tao as the Logos, taking as their point of departure the opening passage of St. John's Gospel, in the beginning was the Word. Now if you look up a Chinese translation of the Bible, it says in the beginning was the Tao. And the Tao was with God, and the Tao was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by it, and without it was not anything made that was made. So they've substituted Tao there. Now that may make a very funny effect on a Chinese philosopher, because the idea of things being made by the Tao is absurd. The Tao is not a manufacturer, and it's not a governor. It doesn't rule, as it were, in the position of a king. Although the book, the Tao Te Ching, is written for many purposes, but one of its important purposes is as a manual of guidance for a ruler. And what it tells him is essentially, rule by not ruling. Don't lord it over the people. And so he says the great Tao flows everywhere, both to the left and to the right. It loves and nourishes all things, but does not lord it over them. And when good things are accomplished, it lays no claim to them. In other words, the Tao doesn't stand up and say, I have made...
As you do on what you call your right side, you will notice a calm, peaceful, serene, perhaps colorful feeling. On your left, notice what you call warfare. Now, the you that you truly prefer to be will, in that sense, perhaps have a similar posture when looking to the right and looking to the left. Therefore, analyze as clearly as your imagination is provided your particular reactions from the preferred point of view of that you, and pay particular attention to the differences in how that you handles and interprets the situation. Allow that you to now face the serene side of the road, having it again the more tumultuous side to the back, and in perceiving that beauty, in perceiving that perfection, in perceiving that particular expression and manifestation of your nature, allow the feelings that you would have to come to this, and feel the feeling of fitting in, feel the feeling of harmony, feel the feeling of unconditional love and acceptance for the scenario that you have chosen to, in that sense, exist within for the time. Allow yourself to now turn 180 degrees, putting the serenity in the back, and now seeing what you would call any version of what you call warfare and tumultuousness upon your platter. But notice the fun.
Just feel it. I think I've got you into the state of meditation. least that's the way it feels. Now remember, in this state, we are not looking for any result. Nothing at all to be accomplished in the future. We are simply experiencing what is, now, here. And we are abandoning the project, momentarily, of forming any concepts about it. Watch it. And don't ask who is watching it, because that's a merely grammatical question, because the verb has to have a subject according to the conventions of our language. There is a watching. Feel it like that. This is called tathata in Sanskrit. Ta-ta-ta.
Use that vibration within you of what's available. This is most me. And if it is possible to act upon that thing with integrity, only can that particular choice be most representative of who I am and be my greatest opportunity in the moment. If something should excite me and I cannot act upon it with integrity, that is the external reality feedback that that particular option is not most me, because acting upon my excitement without the integrity is not what I'm all about, should you again assume this position. So, if you can act upon something with integrity and do it, you get a certain result. If you can't act upon something with integrity and push that aside because you will not stand for that, there will still be a set of options. One will still stand out more than the others, and you will find one that you can act upon with your integrity. This is the feedback system that your reality sets up that allows you to directly access what you call the choice, or perhaps the most likely choice of what you refer to as your higher self. That is why something moves you more than anything else that's available. And again, if you can act upon it with integrity, the reality is showing you through an elaborate set of feedback that that choice is most you. When you act according to what is most you in every given moment, you create an effect. First of all, in that moment, you create the feeling that of all things that are available, this is correct for me. This is the thing that I can do most effortlessly because it is most representative of who I am. By establishing who you are in the moment, you rule out other possibilities. You get that instantaneous feeling and knowingness that this is most me. You also create what you call a causal and effect seeming phenomena in your reality. So when you act upon something in a moment, there even seems to be another echo effect in what you call a successive now moment. So, you
lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager. Every hero and coward. Every creator and destroyer of civilization. Every king and peasant. Every young couple in love. Every mother and father. Hopeful child. Inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they can become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand.
You don't invent the way that those edges, the 12 edges of the cubes, shrink and fit together in the shadow. It's given to you by geometric first principles such as the Pythagorean theorem relating to the angle by which you projected it to the shadow. You can take a higher dimensional crystal and project it to 3 dimensions and get a 3-dimensional shadow, if you want to call it that. We project a slice of E8 crystal down to 3D, which produces a quasi-crystal code or language, and that allows these geometric symbols to build up to the ordinary world of particles and forces that we see around us. So that's our program, is to model physics with a quasi-crystal code made of the simplest bit of 3-dimensional information, the regular tetrahedron.
When you create space, you are creating a finite idea within the infinity of your being. And in order to move across, so to speak, space, you create time in order to do so. This is why even your scientists are understanding that rather than space and time being two things, they now refer to space-time as two sides of one coin. Therefore, when you experience in the infinity space, which is finite, you then create time in which to again move through it, move across it. One other idea, when you are in your natural state, an infinite, eternal, multi-dimensional, all-knowing being, there is actually a certain idea that you cannot experience. When you know it all already, there is not the idea within that all-knowingness of discovery, of experiencing things as if for the first time, which, by the way, many of you say you like. And also the idea you call surprise. How could anything surprise you if you always know it's coming? So one of the fundamental reasons to create a linear frame of reference is to experience things as if, in that sense, you begin as a blank slate. And then, by elaborately playing an amnesia, so to speak, on your all-knowingness, can then seem to experience things with the joy of discovery, with the apparency of the first time. even in your vernacular, even in your planetary society. You enjoy not knowing what is going to occur when you go to, say, your movie. Or in that sense, you have the joy of seeing how it will play out. From the multiplicity of possibilities, you see how one particular version will play out and enjoy being surprised by it. This is one, shall I say, microcosmic analogy to your entire life. The idea of
This is to be what I would call an interruption or an interval between your experience and yourself. You see, in our ordinary way of using our minds, the chronic sense of strain, the chronic attempt to think about and make sense of what we are feeling is what we call our ego. If you say, I experience my own existence, I am aware constantly of a knower behind and receiving all that is known, then you get this chronic sensation of there being an I, a self, who has all these experiences, and that I or self is what we call the ego. And this chronic sense of strain is our, you might call it our psychological blocking against our experience. The thing that seems to divide us from an external world, from the whole universe. But when in this way the interval begins to diminish, we begin to experience our world as ourselves. There is no interval, there is no interruption between the knower and the known. Just as when we are completely absorbed listening to music or dancing to music, we are not aware of our separation from it. We go right with it. And so in the same way, when the mind responds instantly to what the senses bring, it seems almost as if the mind and what it experiences were one and the same. Now, in a way, of course, this is actually true. We can understand this theoretically, but we don't ordinarily really feel it. For example, you know the old saying, if a tree falls in a forest with nobody listening to it, will there be any noise? Perhaps you know the limericks in which this problem is posed. The one
simultaneously, and what you call the past and what you call the future, in a sense, is just another parallel reality track going on simultaneously, that for the purposes of convenience in a space-time reality, you choose to define as past, you choose to define as future, but that's just your definition. It doesn't mean that there actually is a future or a past. All realities coexist right here, right now, because there is only here and now. Look around. Anytime you wonder what time it is, it's always now. There is no then, there is no when. It's always now. Always will be. Always has been, so to speak. What you call, what you experience as different moments is actually the same one moment, the same one eternal moment from a different point of view. That's what you experience that you call different moments in the space-time linear framework illusion. But knowing that what you're actually doing is seeing exactly the same eternal infinite moment from a different point of view tells you that every single little change, every single little shift is nothing but a different point of view of the same existence, the same eternal now. And thus, you can realize that in order to experience movement at all, you actually must be shifting your perspective and shifting from parallel reality to parallel reality, moment to 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 moment. That's what the moments are. It's shifting your perspective of that eternal moment that contains everything. So, in reality, you're already shifting through billions, literally billions of parallel realities every second in order to even have the much like your frames of animation, much like your frames of film.
Attention upon it, you are looking at it at the cost of what is right there. So if you ask yourself this question and the answer is no, I cannot do anything about it, push that aside. Then look at what is right here, right now. That is how you reground yourself into the moment, in any given moment, with that simple question. For you can only act on certain options in a given moment in the way that you lay down the succession in that sense, so to speak, of now moments. And therefore, should you place your attention and concentrate on what you can act upon, there will always be a relevant set of choices. And from those choices, there will always be something which excites you, which gives you more passion, more desire than the other. And if you are willing from what is available, not from what is not, from what is available in any given moment, to use that barometer within you of your excitement, of your gravitation toward, of your passion for, as a criteria to choose from what is available, you will then always express the choice that is directly indicative of the choice of, perhaps you can say, your higher self, or the choice that is representative of what is most you in this life. For excitement itself is the vibratory energy that tells you what is most you. That is why it excites you and nobody else. It is the sign that many of you have been asking for. Oh, I need a sign. The sign is your excitement. Many times something very exciting comes along and you say, not right now, I'm looking for my sign. But that is your sign. That is why you feel that way. Uniquely, you feel that way. Therefore, your point of power can always be acted upon in a positive way by providing at least one positive alternative. Being coincidences, things coming from all different directions you never expected, by recreating the referential, preferential you to do so, attract resources, individuals, timing, knowledge, equipment, that will then place you in a moment where that thing that you have said you desire is one of the options that you can act upon with integrity. This, in a nutshell, is trusting your timing. And each time that you do not take this approach, you are trusting that there is no timing, that you do not get what you want, and therefore you get the evidence or the effect of there being no seeming intelligence to the timing, and that you do not get what you want, except once in a while when you get lucky. But understand, you can experience what I am saying. And obviously, seeing what's right in front of your face, concentrating your attention in what's right there, choosing with your excitement, the most exciting thing, acting upon it with integrity, is no big deal, as you say. It is simple. It is fun. It is effortless. Acting upon the things that excite you with integrity takes no effort, produces no struggle. Therefore, if it is available, now's the time. As you say, go for it. If it is not, you still get what you want. Allow that to roll around in your mentality. Allow this approach to be sampled by you if you so desire. Obviously, the way that you create your own reality right now is flawless, for your reality is ongoing, you experience it. However, perhaps the idea of consciously creating your life, of creating according to preference, may just appeal to you. I don't know. Maybe it will. But what we have found in our society, what we have found from our experience, is that we will settle for nothing less. And the mechanism is flawless. When you follow your excitement with integrity in the moment, What's available right here, right now. You begin to create new effects. As you act upon something that excites you, there is a result. That result puts a new thing into the option that wouldn't have been there before. And so something that excites you in this moment, though it may seem to have nothing to do with the most exciting thing, is by definition a stepping stone that literally creates the next stone, and so on and so forth. Everything is related, one integrated whole. This is you. This is your reality. This is one option of how you can live your life. When you do so, you begin to experience your life in an effortless way. You begin to experience what you call ecstasy, for everything is an effortless, conscious creation. When you do so, not only do you change, your life changes, and miraculously so does everyone around you seem to change. Your new approach, by the way, becomes quite contagious. Individuals seeing another individual living in this way, validating themselves, using and choosing from their excitement, get attracted to this idea because they see that it works as well as the disempowering notions you are already, in that sense, implementing. It all works. It is simply a matter of choosing which one you want. You get what you want. One thing that we sometimes share with you is the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth. What is the ultimate truth, Elan? Please tell me. All right, I will. The ultimate truth, to ultimately be the truth, leaves nothing out. The ultimate truth must. Now listen up. If you choose to sleep, wake up now. The ultimate truth must be composed of all truths. Leave one out and it is almost the ultimate truth. Therefore, all truths must exist within the ultimate truth. What this means is that all truths, all beliefs, all approaches are valid. Now, obviously, being a being that chooses one thing at a time, you cannot choose all truths. And some truths may actually seem to contradict one another. But that does not make one right and one wrong. That makes both the truth for the individuals expressing and exploring that truth. Your willingness to begin to get a feel of the fact that all truths are true for the individuals choosing to create them takes the burden off your shoulder of having to convert everyone over to your truth. And believe me, your neck and shoulders will feel better when you remove that weight from yourself. The bottom line is, it is, in a sense, a futile effort to assume that your truth is the only truth and that's it. For then you miss out on all the other options. One other way to look at this is that my truth is a truth. It is the truth that I am choosing to explore. I have my reasoning for exploring this truth. Certainly I have my right to explore any truth I wish. Why not consider a full and vice versa? In any way, have this outline be the you prefer to be. But do not remove it from yourself. Still understand that you are seeing you. As you do begin to perceive against the background of the blackness, the outline figure, allow it to be slightly backlit by a blue-white light so it stands out that much more. And you can see the difference between perhaps the blackness within the outline and the background by that demarcation line of blue-white light. Now, again, allow what you would call the features, the color, the topography of, perhaps for now, the front of the body to begin to crystallize and see the you that you say you prefer to be. For some individuals, this will look exactly like the you already are. That is just fine. If it does not, that is just fine as well. But again, do not lose the identification that what you are seeing, particularly if it differs a bit from what you see in your mirror, is you. Starting at what you would call the top of your head and scanning very slowly downward, allow the details, allow the fine print, so to speak, to crystallize and see a bit at a time from perhaps now the top of your head, what you would call your hair. See that hair. How does it look? How is it hanging, as you say, being that this is a bit foreign to us? Allow yourself to slowly now scan down to what you call your forehead and eye region and begin to very clearly and discreetly, in whatever way that is presented from your imagination, allow that to crystallize and become more solid, more clear. As you do so, allow this to wash downward, to complete the nose, to complete the mouth, and the outline of the chin, as you say. See your face, the face of the you. You say you wish to be.
You trust in something, and therefore simply identifying where you have placed your trust allows you to see whether or not that is where you wish to place it. And simply shifting that trust according to preference can be quite simple. Understand, what you call your reality exists within what you call a time frame. You sometimes speak about being a soul or having a soul. However, being a soul is more accurate. For a soul is not something within you. A soul is what you are within, so to speak. A soul does not reside in your body. You can experience that apparency, but more accurately, your body resides within your soul. Your soul, or your essence, or your higher self, or whatever you wish to call it, is an infinite, multi-dimensional, and eternal expression. Therefore, it is timeless, it is ageless, it is spaceless in its pristine form. What you call time, what you call space, exists within the infinity of your soul or of your higher self. So time and timing is an expression that exists within your soul, which is a timeless creation. Now, why would you do this? Good question. Being that you are an infinite being, you explore an infinite number of possibilities.